energy purchases, which oil trade particularly, which is going to dip down to its lowest in the last 3 to 4 years this December. It's going to now involve pharmaceuticals. It's going to involve fertilizers, automobile parts, and all of that is looking up. In fact, I have with me a very young Medansh who's just 17 years old, and he's the youngest member of FICCI. Just to quickly have it from Medansh. Medansh, what is it that the youth of India and Russia can look towards now that President Putin's making that state visit?
I find it really motivating to see how Russia...
I also want to go across to my colleague Sanjay Suri, who continues to be with us. Sanjay, want to understand from you, because you've been following it since the very start of the Ukraine war. You know, the high-pitched... All right, let me go across to my colleague Arun Dhata first, because he's there at the Palam airport where all the action is right now. We have multiple sets of visuals, Arun, that have come in. The Prime Minister reaching, there is a ceremonial guard of honor of sorts that is being prepared on the tarmac. Tell us more of what's happening.
Well, that's right. We have earlier shown that Prime Minister Modi had entered the Palam Technical Airport, and in fact he's inside. As we've been discussing about the preparations inside the airport, completely it is decked up to welcome the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Let me quickly show you a glimpse of the Palam Technical Airport gate. There you can see now. In fact, it seems that the traffic movement is going to be stopped in a short while from. This is the gate that you see. You will be getting in a short while from now the live visuals of both the leaders coming out. And interestingly, Shivani, we'll have to see whether both
the Prime Minister is there on the tarmac. These are live visuals coming in. His car is there. The security is there. He's now waiting inside his vehicle as the Russian President Vladimir Putin's plane lands. We are being told that plane has landed. So both of them are going to be greeting each other very, very shortly. The Prime Minister is exiting his car. And could we see both of them riding to his residence together? I think that is something that could be looked forward to, because in the past, the ride that both Putin and Modi shared became the talk of the town. So could something that be repeated on the streets of New Delhi? We'll wait and see. But these are fresh visuals coming in of the Prime Minister waiting to embrace, I'm guessing, his friend Putin. There could very well be a hug on cards and maybe, who knows, a shared ride. But these are, of course, visuals that are going to be watched very closely across the world. India is not pulling any stops as far as the welcome for Vladimir Putin is concerned. It is unfettered and unconcerned of the global eye on this visit to India. Ceremonial red carpet that has been rolled out for Vladimir Putin. Lots on the agenda, but what is really center stage is the friendship that these two nations have. And that friendship is not going anywhere, pressure from the West or NATO or not. That is going to be the signaling that both of these leaders are going to be doing as Vladimir Putin lands in India for his 30-hour visit. We are being told he has landed. Prime Minister is walking towards a certain direction now. We'll try and get a more clearer visual of what is happening there, but it seems like there could be a meeting inside. Let's see. He's gone inside some building. We'll see exactly what happens. But what we're getting to know is that President Putin's plane has landed at Palam airport for his visit. The Prime Minister is there at the airport, almost on the tarmac, to receive his friend. And we're waiting to see exactly what transpires between these two leaders. They're going to go straight, mind you, to Prime Minister's residence, 7 LKM. And they're going to have a very private conversation there just between the two leaders. And there's going to be a dinner for the visiting dignitary at the PM's residence before the ceremonial activities begin tomorrow and all of the bilateral work happens tomorrow. There's going to be a quiet, very private meeting between the two leaders this evening. Could they share a ride together? We'll wait and see. Those pictures went viral, mind you, when they were sitting in a car together last time around. And this would be a great photo op if it happens once again. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi being there in person at the airport to receive Vladimir Putin, that in itself is, as they say, quote-unquote, breaking protocol. This is not how it's supposed to be. But Prime Minister has done this in the past when he wants to signal not just India's interest in a particular country, but also his personal relationship with the very many dignitaries that he has gone to the airport for. It has happened not just in New Delhi, but even in other states, in Gujarat, for example. And Siddhant, my colleague, also is continuing to be with us. Siddhant, any moment now, any moment, I think we could get visuals of the two leaders meeting.
Well, that's right, Shivani. In fact, you were mentioning about Prime Minister, an expert in extending special gestures. And whenever these two leaders meet, President Putin and Prime Minister Modi, there is something very unexpected that will happen. The bonhomie embraces, the hugs between the two leaders. In fact, if we talk about the Tianjin summit, Shivani, the way President Putin and Prime Minister Modi went together to meet President Xi Jinping, and then all the three leaders, had a brief conversation ahead of the plenary session. Then, as you rightly pointed out, right after the Tianjin summit, both Prime Minister Modi and President Putin drove in one car to the hotel for the bilateral talks. So this relationship, this bonhomie is very, very special. And also, Shivani, all this while, since the start of this conflict, many times President Putin has briefed Prime Minister Modi on Russia's position, on how Russia is going to pursue peace, the efforts Russia is giving for peace in Ukraine, etc., etc. So, there is definitely a comfort level between the two leaders. There is definitely a very good understanding between the two leaders, and this is the reason that last time around also when Prime Minister Modi visited Moscow, there was restrictive level talks between the two leaders. In fact, both leaders exchanged perspectives on Ukraine conflict. And also, Shivani, because of this comfort level only, Prime Minister Modi is the only world leader to be sitting next to President Putin and telling him, stop the war, children are dying. So this is exactly what Prime Minister Modi said when he visited Moscow last year in July. So that's the level of comfort, and Russia is always open to discuss anything related to Ukraine conflict or global scenarios with India. So, this to celebrate this bonhomie, to celebrate this relationship, this kinship, Prime Minister Modi has once again extended this special gesture of going to the airports by breaking all protocols and to receive his friend.
This is not the first time. This is not the first time, Siddhant. This is Anand here, and good evening to our viewers as we continue on into the right stand. Whether or not will these two leaders take the right stand in the interest of global peace, harmony, and of course the global south. More importantly, what will be the interest of Bharat and Russia? That's the big question, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi, like he did for the Saudi Arabia prince, like he did for Sheikh Hasina in the past, like he has done for special leaders, he has for Donald Trump. He has gone there to show to the world that Vladimir Putin and Bharat's equation with Russia is equally important for Bharat as compared to any of the other nations, be it in the friendly neighborhood or be it from the West. But this is a special gesture. Let's remember, Arun Dhanta is there at the airport. We also have Siddhant joining us right from outside 7 LKM, that's where they will actually make their way. We must remember at Tianjin, there was a very special gesture that was extended by President Putin, where he waited for 10 minutes in his Aurus Senat, and then he brought in and hosted Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his vehicle, in his security vehicle, and they drove around for an hour. The world watched when Prime Minister Narendra Modi sat inside President Putin's car, and President Putin actually waited for 10 minutes because Prime Minister Narendra Modi was held up at that time. Now, these are fresh visuals coming through. The red carpet has been laid out. Prime Minister Narendra Modi may walk up right up to the front along with the Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar. He will be there, and President Putin will step out of the special aircraft, the presidential aircraft. Now, we will have, that's Prime Minister Narendra Modi getting off the vehicle and greeting the people present. There is a special guard of honor right at the tarmac, and President Putin will get out of the aircraft any moment now, and we should have those pictures. This is indeed a big moment, and Siddhant and Arun Dhanta with us. Siddhant, weigh in on this. The Bharat Dosti, Russia Dosti, the President Putin, Prime Minister Narendra Modi connection and them knowing each other goes back to 2001, where we have pictures of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, perhaps as Chief Minister of Gujarat at that time, accompanying Prime Minister Vajpayee to Moscow. And at that time, it was Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. Boris Yeltsin was the president. They were sitting there signing documents and Prime Minister Modi was present. So they go back a long way, more than 2.5 decades. Their association, their knowing each other, their friendship. And perhaps it's now ready to take it to the next level, where they have hinted at a no-limits partnership, where both nations will be committed to helping each other prosper.
Well, yes, that's right, Anand. In fact, the sources are also telling us that wait for a few more surprises by tomorrow. So we could expect, some more surprises coming our way from Prime Minister Modi and President Putin, because till today afternoon we were expecting EMS Jaishankar to be going to receive President Putin. But, by evening it was CNN News 18 which broke the story first, that Prime Minister Modi will be going to the airport by breaking protocols to receive President Putin. Also, Anand, if you allow me, I would like to share one incident. There was a bilateral meeting which was going on between President Putin and Prime Minister Modi long back, and there was some mic issue, some translation issues. So President Putin immediately intervened and said that we don't need translators, we understand each other's language very well. So that's the level of comfort, that's the friendship and the understanding between the two leaders. And when President Putin said that, Prime Minister Modi also smiled. So as I said, that there's going to be more surprises. There's going to be more gestures, unexpected gestures, which we could expect tomorrow in the national capital when these two leaders are going to meet. And this is the first visit of President Putin to India in 5 years. Today, both leaders will have a private meeting. It will only be President Putin and Prime Minister Modi in room, along with the translators, and perhaps they are going to discuss global scenarios.
That meeting, Siddhant, actually begins even as they depart the airport. For all you know, they may just travel in the same car. Whether just checking with Arun Dhanta. Arun, did you also see President Putin's cavalcade, the Aurus Senat, which has been brought down specifically for his visit here and for his local travel? Is that already inside the airport? Is it a possibility that the two leaders may actually share the same vehicle on their way out, on the way to Lokalan Marg?
Well, Anand, it's going to be very, very interesting to see as to what happens, how both the leaders travel, whether they will be a redux moment, what we witnessed in Tianjin in China when President Putin waited for Prime Minister Modi and then both of them traveled in the same car. Will today again be a day when those scenes will be once again seen here? But as we are seeing that Prime Minister Modi is already inside, and we are also told that Vladimir Putin has also reached here. And Anand, let me quickly tell you that the distance from here, the Palam Technical Airport, to the 7 LKM, the official residence of Prime Minister Modi, is 11 kilometers. So the moment they come out of this gate, if you can see right now from our camera on our screens right now, is 15 to 20 minutes. 7:30 is the time for the dinner. And of course, as we've been speaking to people inside the airport, they're saying that the entire airport is glittering, completely decked up, and Prime Minister Modi, of course, ensuring, because he reached way before time inside the airport, and in fact, took a stalk around how's the preparation for the welcome of Vladimir Putin. Remember, as you've been also discussing about this, there have been very few instances when Prime Minister Modi himself had come to the airport, and this year we had seen when Amir of Qatar had arrived, Prime Minister Modi was here, and in 2020 in Ahmedabad for Donald Trump, in 2017 for Sheikh Hasina and for Shinzo Abe, and in 2015 for Barack Obama when he was the chief guest of Republic Day. So today again is the day, and that shows that how important that person is for you, who is coming to your country, and you are himself going there at the airport and waiting for him actually to arrive, and then of course the entire delegation along with you.
That 10-minute wait,
so
that 10-minute wait will go a long way. That will not be forgotten. That 10-minute wait that President Putin made in Tianjin for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to join him inside his vehicle in his car will not be forgotten. And perhaps this is also a signal to the world. We'll try and see if we have our guests this evening on the right stand to understand the import of these of these pictures. We should also have the live visuals coming. These are from just a short while ago. The preparations are at full tilt, and there will be the bonhomie. There will be where do they meet and greet each other. Both leaders, will they break protocol, and will one invite the other into their cavalcade, and will they travel together, and do the conversations already then begin? Abhijit Iyer Mitra with us. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, big messaging to the world that Russia is an important partner. The West may want to sanction it left, right and center and lampoon it, but Bharat stands steadfast, just like Russia has in the past with Bharat. Those are pictures of President Putin's aircraft landing. Its touchdown has happened and the taxi will happen. These are first pictures coming on CNN News 18. So the presidential plane is on the tarmac. There it is. And then it will just exit the runway, make its way to the tarmac area where officials of both the Prime Minister and the President of Russia, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's officials, and of course the Russian delegation and the Russian officials, they're all present there for this welcome. The red carpet will be laid and then President Putin will alight. But Abhijit Iyer Mitra, as we have these pictures, your thoughts?
Remember, this relationship, it is 70, 80 years old. They have always given us a veto on demand, except for that short period when Andrei Kozyrev was foreign minister. Now, Andrei Kozyrev is a rat who's now in the West sitting and talking about sanctioning Russia and things like that. So we should leave that aside as an aberration. The rest of the time, when have the Russians not come through for us? We used to keep getting moral lectures from the West, when the West had no problem supporting Pakistan with arms and sometimes sending the fleet against us to thwart our attempts at disciplining Pakistan. Russia stood by us. Now, it is not just historical value, Anand. We need to remember we can never allow China and Russia to come together. We have to keep Russia on our good side for our own interest, current interest right now. This is not past baggage we're talking about. This is present geopolitical interest that we have to keep in mind. And this is something that is current. Now, there is also things now like the S-400. I'm very certain there is an S-400 or an S-500 purchase that is going to happen. Sukhoi 27, Sukhoi 57, I don't know. Maybe, may not be. But the relationship is good. It is clear. The dynamics, the geopolitical dynamics of it are 100% solid. Because remember, Russia also can't be stuck with a monopsony market in China. It needs alternative markets for its higher value goods and things like that, which India provides.
True. Ambassador Shashank is with us, former Foreign Secretary of India, and also Surya Jayanti, non-resident senior fellow, Atlantic Council with us. My namaste and Jai Hind. Thank you for your time. Shashankji, your thoughts? How critical, how important is this visit from both Bharat and also Russia's perspective? Shashankji, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, your thoughts, please. Namaste. Anand here. Ji.
Namaste, Anand. No, I didn't hear your question. I thought you were asking someone else.
No, the question was to you.
Yes.
The importance of this visit from both Russia's perspective and also Bharat's perspective. The timing also.
It's an extremely important visit. It's taking place after 4 years. And when there have been signs that America is trying to bring an end to the Ukraine-Russia conflict, but it is finding that, firstly, the Europeans are not on board. Secondly, the American arms manufacturers are also not on board. So there is some kind of a difficulty within the American setup. So with this as the background, Russia and India are both trying to continue strengthening their relationships. This is a relationship of total mutual trust, and which has been built up over a long period of time. And the kind of technology transfers which have taken place between our two countries, they have led to a new situation where we have been talking about a joint production, joint R&D and investments in both places. So I think these are the issues which have been talked about. Now we need to implement them. And I think keeping in mind India's Atmanirbharta campaign, we should really request this time Russia to do the technology transfer as much as possible to India.
Well, with respect to the S-500s, there is conversation around technology transfer. The S-500s are important in terms of futuristic capabilities. There's conversation around technology transfer and manufacture in Bharat of the Sukhoi 57 too. But will we get there? Because we're still expecting 2 batteries of the S-400s. That's already part of the deal. Surya Jayanti, will it be largely defense, or will there be another geopolitical import of this visit too?
This is a hugely important visit, geopolitically speaking. I think the broader background here is, and I say this speaking from Washington, D.C., and as a former U.S. diplomat assigned to Ukraine, the broader background here is that it is not all about the United States all the time. And I think it is easy for Washington often to forget that there are countries out there that have their own long-standing relationships, their own long-standing priorities that diverge from the United States' geopolitical and economic priorities. So what Washington is watching unfold is exactly that situation now between Russia and India. And what Washington wants is, of course, a big part of the dance that's going to go on, because Modi is in a position where he needs to balance both his interests with Moscow and also his interests with Washington, D.C. But there are many aspects of this that the United States has no role in. And so I think we will see as much of a strengthening of the relationship as possible between India and Russia from this. I think it will be couched of global stability. I think India will be quite careful to make sure that it isn't saying anything inflammatory to the United States. But we are watching a little bit of a global power realignment, and the Russia-India-China shift of power from Western capitals to these Eastern countries is something that I think is rapidly unfolding, and that the Russian war in Ukraine has played a big part of. And then most broadly, or at least with respect to the balance of power between Russia and India, I think Russia needs India a lot more than India needs Russia right now. And so I think this is an excellent opportunity for India to secure some concessions in defense, some contracts in energy, manufacturing, as well as broader strategic gains.
Well, Bharat has a 70 billion import bill and just a 4 billion export bill to Russia right now. So that trade deficit needs to be balanced a bit. Nikita Menkovich, director of the Eurasian Analytical Club, is also with us. My namaste. Thank you for your time. Your thoughts on this? There are 10 GOMs that are supposed to be signed. That's not necessarily defense. What do you think will be the key focus areas, Nikita, as far as President Putin's perspective is concerned? Because there have been some placatory tones post the Witkoff meet from the Americans. There has been some indications from Mr. Peskov also, where he said that we just need a sovereign guarantee from Ukraine that they will not join NATO, and then we can immediately cease fire. Will that conversation also happen between these two leaders? Is Bharat playing a role in the Russia-Ukraine conflict? Nikita.
First of all, I'd like to underline that there is no Russian-Ukrainian conflict. It is a Ukrainian problem, Ukrainian conflict, in which Russian and Ukrainian army fighting against a puppet government in Kiev. They're fighting for those land and for those freedom. That's what it is about. Of course, in this case, Russia is dealing with the United States, who established and controlled so-called Ukrainian government of Mr. Zelensky. The only thing we want our land back. We want freedom for our people. We want guarantees that no new war will be produced by United States and NATO on the Ukraine territory. Of course, we doesn't want to see there NATO troops, American soldiers, American occupation. That's all about. Please don't talk about so-called Russian-Ukrainian conflict. A lot of Ukrainian people fighting against American mercenaries in Russian troops. Russian and Ukrainian people are allies against NATO aggression. You should remember it.
It's also about the narratives and perspectives from either side. And one of the things perhaps that Bharat can learn is to how to shed the Western narrative and to try and pursue a narrative that is important to the country. The Russians seem to be doing that very focused and ably, and have negotiated a huge gamut of sanctions and financial distress to continue to sustain themselves. But Farwa Amer, Director of South Asia Initiatives, Asia Society Policy Institute, would you agree with Nikita, Surya, or would you have a different perspective itself on the import of this visit, the connect between these two leaders, and more importantly, the Bharat-Russia dosti? Can this move to that no limits description that was hinted at by Mr. Peskov?
Thank you for having me. I do agree with what Surya said. It is important for India to value and to keep continuing to support its partnerships both with Russia and with the United States. Of course, this has been a challenging year for the US-India relationship. There's the trust deficit that has developed, and this visit is coming at a very delicate time because of the US sanctions and the tariffs and the trade deal that is on the table between the United States and India. And there's been a decrease in the crude oil imports that had seen a massive increase and was something notable for the United States between India and Russia. So now when this visit is going to happen, it's going to be one where India would want to make sure that the overall relationship, despite these differences that have emerged because of the sort of curbing the oil imports in light of the US sanctions and to comply with some of the US demands, and in terms of securing its relationship with the West, it will be to also make sure that the relationship with Russia stays stable and steady. One of the biggest narratives coming out of India is to expand this relationship and take it beyond defense and oil, and to try and make it more broadly economic, sort of one where there is room for more technological cooperation. There is room to do more on the civil nuclear cooperation side and collaboration side. There's one labor mobility agreement that's likely going to be signed as well. So, to engage more from a people-to-people perspective. So how can you take this relationship and make it a little bit broader to kind of maintain that status of this privileged and strategic partnership? Of course, this has been a testing time for India because this year has sort of laid out how much strategic flexibility there is for India in this rapidly evolving geopolitical order that we are seeing, not just with how India is engaging with Russia in light of what's coming out of the West and Western policy uncertainty towards India, but also how it's kind of stepped up even so cautiously in terms of its engagement with China. When Prime Minister Modi was in China after 7 years for the SCO, that event in itself also had reactions come out of Washington. So there is room, however, to say to kind of make sure that both relationships can somehow remain in parallel and do well if there's progress on the Ukraine negotiations, peace negotiations.
Well, there may be territorial disagreements. There would also be an adversarial thought process between China's machinations under the CCP and the PLA vis-a-vis Bharat. But when a nation like and under the leadership of Donald Trump tries to weaponize trade, then can other nations set aside their territorial ambitions and look at how they can use economics, they can use trade to perhaps defang bullies? Is that a possibility, Shashankji? But if it comes to Bharat and Russia, then there has to be a rupee-ruble agreement. Because you can't base it on the dollar if Russia continues to be sanctioned and Bharat continues to be threatened with sanctions if it continues to buy oil. Although it's hypocritical that nations in Europe, America itself continues to trade with Russia, be it fertilizers, oil, energy, etc.
Yeah, I agree with you that America has been putting unilateral tariffs on India, which is quite unfair. But India has to see that, well, they have not put these tariffs on China, Europe, and on itself. And therefore, we have to ensure that whatever oil and other energy resources we buy from Russia, we should use it for ourselves, number one. Secondly, we should go for technology transfer, because that will be strengthening the Atmanirbharta campaign of India. Thirdly, as you said, that we have to make arrangement for rupee-ruble trading directly, whichever way it is possible, either by more investments by Russia and India, by choosing a larger gamut of imports from India, or asking Indian companies to invest in Russia. Also, as you said, labor movement might be there because apparently Russia is short of technical manpower, skilled manpower, and the labor, and they would very much like to have a large number of people from India. So I think these are all issues which are necessary. China, of course, they have their own territorial ambitions, but China has been telling India for a long time that China and India are both civilizational powers in Asia, and we can delay our contest for a later time. In the meantime, if we build up our economic capacities, our technical capacities, then we might be able to see that Asia has a better role to play in the world relationships. So I think with what America is doing right now, that is making it possible for India to look at the Chinese advice much more positively, which we were not doing earlier, because earlier our foreign minister had been saying that let us first sort out the border issues, and then we will come to the other parts. But now I think that the Americans are putting unilateral sanctions on India, but while leaving out China or many other countries from this. So therefore, India has to see that, well, we also build up our ties with China to the extent possible, and also with Russia, which of course are very, very important ties for us.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Chinese state can afford to take some strong decisions. They, 2 months or 1.5 months, they stop importing soya bean. And the Americans immediately looked at that $10 billion bill and immediately, calmed down. So there were certain weapons, again, trade, the amount of debt that the Chinese absorb of the American debt. All of that also weighs in with, Trump trying to look at Bharat and not at China. The red carpet laid out, flying Kremlin is on the tarmac. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will walk up as soon as there is a signal, and we'll have to see, we'll have to read the language between the two leaders. Pictures speak 1,000 words. The Prime Minister's gesture, waiting for nearly half an hour at the airport at the tarmac, reaching well on time. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, is this Bharat's way of saying thank you for the Tianjin gesture? Is that one? Secondly, the way these two leaders will meet, greet, and how they depart. If they depart in the same car, irrespective of whether it is the Prime Minister's vehicle or President Putin's vehicle, towards 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, will also send a few signals.
So, look, this was an annual visit that used to happen. The Indian Prime Minister went there 1 year. The Russian President would come here 1 year. It just hasn't happened for the last 4 years because of the Ukraine war. And the second thing is, it was very curious. I was talking to air traffic control earlier today. Even the chief air traffic controller had not been told what time the plane would be landing. So there were a lot of security concerns that the Russians had flying over neutral, even over neutral airspace. I believe that this particular flight path has actually gone through military flight routes, not through the civil flight routes. And I don't know how the final coordination was done with the ATC and when the flight plan was given, because till this morning, Delhi ATC sure didn't know what time the plane was going to land.
They kept it very guarded. President Putin is just about to step out. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, just staying with the pictures. There you go, thanking the captain of the ship as he steps out. And President Putin is stepping down. He's coming down, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has walked right up there to the base of that those steps to receive President Vladimir Putin. There you go, as he steps down, walks up 10 steps, and there you will see Prime Minister Narendra Modi walking towards him. The big handshake and the big embrace. Lots of smiles between the two leaders. This is the long camera as Prime Minister Narendra Modi is walking slowly towards the red carpet. They meet halfway on the red carpet. Big warm embrace between the two leaders. Lots of smiles, lots of conversations. Clearly, both of them can converse in English, and that's what's happened. A short conversation in English as both of them walk together. The formal introductions to the delegates and the reception party, that's what's going on at this point, as all the members of the PMO, the External Affairs Ministry, the joint delegation, both sides, the Russian, Indo-Russian counterparts, all of them stand there. That's the welcoming party that's being introduced, and then a handshake and greeting that's happening. And thereafter, this will be interesting to see. Which way do they move? Do they go in separate vehicles towards 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, They're all standing there for a photo op. Clearly, President Putin in good spirits, all smiles. The security, as Abhijit Iyer Mitra had said, they've kept all the details very guarded. There is a welcome dance and a performance that's being made. 5 or 6 dancers performing traditional Indian classical dance form. And this looks like Bharatanatyam. And so the performance there as both leaders pause on the tarmac to watch this. They watch, they applaud the performers for their effort, and that's the white vehicle. Now we'll have to see if they're all leaving together. We'll try and go across to those pictures and see if the leaders are departing together in the same vehicle. That means then the conversations, the broad contours of the conversation would have already begun. Yes, they are stepping in together. They are stepping in together. They are going together. There you go. The import of this is important. This looks like the president's vehicle. The president's vehicle in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also seated. The president sitting right behind the chauffeur, the driver's side, and Prime Minister sitting to the president's left. And the two leaders are already conversing. The SPG, the Russian security protocol, all of them sitting there. There are pictures that are being taken of the two leaders, and we'll have those pictures also being released in a bit. But Shashankji is with us. This is significant. After Tianjin, the second time the two leaders are traveling in the same vehicle. This is very rare. Shashankji, can you hear me?
I can hear you. So there is a very time constraint is there. They have to discuss. There's so many issues of great importance for bilateral relations and for the global situation as it is evolving, and issues of war and peace, that I think it's important that they should discuss this in the cars in a safe environment and take every opportunity to express their thoughts to each other.
But this is quite rare. This doesn't happen often. Surya Jayanti, Nikita Menkovich with us. Nikita Menkovich, this will be important. The Russians will be watching this. There is a show of fist and then, of course, something symbolic. There is a conversation that's happening. We can see the Prime Minister quite animated. But this is important. President Putin doesn't do this often with many leaders. Nikita.
This meeting is really important for both countries. For a long time, we had been main partners as Soviet Union and India. Now we're coming back to that level of relationship. Of course, for my honor opinion, not the more important what two leaders are showing now, but what they are going to discuss. But the thing with you demonstrate us that nothing spoils this meeting and this dialogue between our two countries. It shows that both Putin and Modi demonstrate confidential and respect for each other. It is a good base for dialogue and for future partnership in economy, in defense, and military projects. I hope that also IT, science and other fields will be a topic of our dialogue and next.
I'm just going to interrupt you because we're getting pictures from Arun Dhanta's camera. Arun, you're just at the point where the two leaders are departing in the same car, same vehicle together. So similar to Tianjin, it's a white color vehicle that should come your way any moment now. Arun, talk us through what you see.
That's right, Ananda. You can see the convoy, the first car of the convoy is coming out. In fact, this is the protocol car that you see. The gate is open. This is the Palam Technical Airport, and you can see now there's a glittering vehicle. This is also a protocol vehicle coming from inside the Palam Technical Airport. We just saw, in fact, we're seeing those deferred visuals of inside the airport, and now you can see that one after the other these protocol cars are coming, and any moment on this camera
it'll be a white vehicle. It'll be a white colored vehicle.
Yeah, of course, this is the entire convoy. Now, Anand, you can see all these vehicles now coming out from the Palam Technical Airport. You can see these visuals on your screen as we've been discussing.
There you
that
go.
it's
That's the white vehicle.
11-kilometer journey from here to 7 LKM, and it will not take more than 15 minutes for this entire convoy to reach at Prime Minister Modi's residence. You can see this entire entourage here moving away from the Palam Technical Airport as we were witnessing the visuals of the inside, the welcome dance, the traditional dance there. And
right, so the
cavalcade
has left you, and we saw a little bit of a freeze in the pictures, the live pictures, because of the jammers that are in place. Huge amount of security, viewers, that have been put in place for President Putin's visit, and this is again breaking protocol. But Nikita Menkovich saying, I'm going to focus, we need to focus on what they will discuss. But the conversation has already begun. Surya Jayanti, will the White House also be watching? Will Europe leaders there also be watching the intensity of the conversation, the bonhomie between the leaders, the gestures that are extended? All this is also subtle messaging somewhere. Or would everybody look at, say, all right, this is optics,